Hello and welcome to the Black Hat Bushcraft channel. If you've been following my compass series of videos thus far, you're probably familiar with how to look out on the horizon and pick a target or a destination, and then use your compass to shoot the azimuth to that target, and now travel there knowing the direction that you've actually traveled. And with that information, now it's very simple to turn around and shoot a back azimuth to get back where you came from. So naturally, the next step in the progression is to keep track of the distance that you've traveled to go from point A to point B, and that way you know what distance you have to travel to get from point B back to point A. It's also important to keep track of distance so that you can help gauge time. How long is it going to take me to navigate from point B back to point A? Maybe I'm considering how much daylight I have left, or how long it's going to be before the rain sets in. So keeping track of that distance that you traveled will definitely help you plan your route back. All of this is very simple to keep track of as long as you know your basic pace count. So let's go through that step by step right now. Whenever you determine your pace count, generally you do it over a course of 100 meters. So it's as simple as putting a stake in the ground, measuring off 100 meters, putting another stake in the ground, and then walking back and forth between those stakes, counting every other footstep. And it's your choice, right foot or left foot. That way you can take an average. So if you do that 3 times, 5 times, how many ever times you want to do it, you write down the pace for each of those strips, and then you take an average of them at the end. Very simple to do. Let's go through this exercise step by step. What I'll be measuring with to get my pace count course set up is this 100 meter measuring tape. You can see that the equivalent is 330 feet. So even if you don't have the luxury of using a 100 meter measuring tape, if you have a 25-foot measuring tape or a 50-foot measuring tape, you can use that. You just have to go in multiple increments to get the 100 meters. But that is the ideal distance that you'll want to pace count off at. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that set up now. My tape has a little hook on it. I'm just going to hook it on the stop here. And now I'm going to walk out the 100 meters. All right here is our 100 meter mark. I'm going to drive this into the ground. I pulled the tape as tight as I could, bended us across the weeds and so forth. There you can see our second marker out at the 100 meter mark. Here we are way back at our first marker here. So you can see what the 100 meter course looks like. Anytime you're trying to figure an accurate pace count, it's important that you carry whatever the load is that you would normally hike or navigate with. So your backpack, your belt pouch, haversack, even filling up your canteens or water bottles can make a difference. Anything that adds weight to your person can potentially affect your pace, and you want to make sure to figure those things into getting your pace count. Just to make sure that I'm getting my best pace count, I'm going to go ahead and throw this heavy pack on, and now I'm going to go from the first marker down to the second marker. Whenever you pace count, it doesn't matter whether you count your left step or your right step. As long as you count every other step that you take, that will give you your pace count. I'm going to put my left heel against this pole, my first marker, and I'm going to step off with my right foot, and then I'm going to step with my left, and that's 1, 2, and so forth between marker 1 and marker 2. So I'll always count my left step only. One, 2, 3, 4. And that round I got 65. All right, at this point I've made 10 100 meter hikes back and forth between my two markers. The first set of 5 are here, 65, 68, 66, 67, and 67. I add those 5 numbers together, which gave me 333 paces, divide that by the 5 trips that I made, and it gave me an average pace count of 66.6, which I'd round to 67 paces, which is what I always use for my personal pace count. I wanted to double check that, so I did another 5, which you can see here, came to 331. divided by 5 gave me a 66.2 pace count. So you'd round that to 66. So 66, 67, that's my average pace count. But that's basically how you do it. You could take 10 trips and average all 10 if you want. It doesn't matter. As long as you do 3 to 5 times, I think that gives you a pretty consistent number. One other factor that's important to consider when you're taking your pace count is what type of terrain are you usually operating in. As you can see around me, everything's basically flat. So to get the most accurate pace count that I'll use, it's important for me to do it on flat ground. However, if you go uphill a lot, you tend to take bigger steps going uphill. If you go downhill, you tend to take smaller steps. And so if that's part of what you're normally operating in, you want to take pace counts for downhill, take pace counts for uphill, take pace counts on flat ground through dense brush. You can do all of these different courses, do 3 to 5 times through each of these types of terrain, and then take those 4 to 5 numbers, average them together, and that gives you a great pace count for varying terrain. So maybe a part of my hike I'm going uphill, part downhill, part through the woods, part through the field, and now I have just a basic average of all of that figured into one number. You can keep a little notebook in your pack like I do, and then I have pace count for uphill, pace count for downhill, pace count for flat ground written down in here, and that way, depending on what my particular terrain is for the day, I can use the pace count that best fits that. Just an idea on how to consider your terrain when you're figuring your pace count. All right, I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in for this video on how to take your pace count. It's really a simple process. It's just a matter of going out, measuring the distance, and doing the walking. I look forward to talking to you guys with the next video in this series very soon. And until the next one, take care and God bless.